Now, I had the pleasure of playing a game I'd never heard of before today.
So you hadn't heard of it?
No,
I remember we got sent the code and I said, who am I going to get to do? I bet you Megs hasn't played it. The game, of course.
Framed Collection on the Switch. I loved it, and I'd never played it before, never heard of it, and I jumped straight in with no expectations, and it blew my mind.
But I think that's why it works. Based on what the game is, it's very, it's fair to say it's a very unique style of game.
Absolutely. It is a puzzle game where you play as I guess a
spy, or
absolutely a spy,
secret agent.
Yeah, it's like a silhouette, and it's a comic book style where
quite literally a silhouette. Yeah.
Yeah, you change the panels of a comic book to essentially rearrange the timeline to have the desired outcome of each panel, basically.
Yeah, but so basically, let's say, for example, he's picking up a briefcase and then he's running, he's trying to escape with the briefcase. You have to set the panels up so that he runs around this corner and then he turns right and then he goes across the roof. But if you do it the wrong way around, he falls off the roof and dies.
Yes, that's a very convoluted way of describing it.
Convoluted?
As in, there's a desired outcome for each panel, which has a different environment, a different scene, a different outcome, where your spy is either going to get arrested or dies. And imagine this like noir theme, like a really cool jazz soundtrack where it's like really like, you know, you want to swig a cigar or swig a cigar.
That too, but like,
one of the two.
But
it's really stylish.
It's a very aesthetically driven game, and
yeah,
this is where they've spent a lot of time working on that on top of the mechanics. Obviously, the mechanics are reasonably simple, but the actual, I guess, the art style, and not even just the art style, the general aesthetic, is fantastic.
So it's designed by Love Shack Entertainment, who are an Aussie indie developer. It's super exciting, and it's a really polished game. It was first released in 2014 on iOS and Android.
And you can tell. Like, let's be real. You look at it, the way the panels work, it just looks like a comic book, which works perfectly for a screen.
It's perfect. It's so good for handheld that I think the Frame Collection really adds a lot of value, because not only can you now fast forward the gameplay and really speed up those scenes that you've played a few times and you've sucked at, and you know, where the outcome's been right under your nose the whole time.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's a really great feeling. That aha moment is really satisfying. So I think, to me, like, being not part of Love Shack Studios, but imagine storyboarding that game. I can't even believe like how much work would have gone behind the scenes to create this beautiful masterpiece.
And that is probably the big takeaway from it, is there's a lot of love there. You can tell that there's a lot of passion behind it, because it is not the kind of game you would think to do if you're wondering about commercial success. There's no whaling. There's no real way to incentivize it outside of play our pretty game and hopefully you like it. And they've done a really good job of that, because even Kojima said it was one of his favorite games of all time. That's a pretty high
They're riding
praise.
that wave still even today with this new release of the collection. But essentially, it came out in a time where it's a really heavy narrative-led game where, as you play, you change the outcome of the game. Now, it's not like a choose your own adventure, but essentially the way you change the panels really changes how your spy survives. Yeah. And it's really great.
And I think it works better because it is on that micro level rather than the macro level. Because, I mean, all those contrived choices you make in Telltale games, and let's call it Telltale games, they really can only follow certain progressive paths. With this, because it's such a, I don't want to say a simple narrative, but it is. Like, you know, you are escaping, or you are saving the girl, or you are doing this. Like,
I loved it.
But because of that, I think it worked. The purity of vision stuck through, and that's what we want out of indie games, purity of vision, I think.
That's right. So there's 1 and 2, framed 1 and 2, and I guess the first one is a work of art where it gets more complicated as you keep playing. So you change the rotation of the panels, you change the orientation, you have to move the panels again once you've already pressed play. It becomes like really challenging and super satisfying, whereas number 2 really perfects that and explores it even further on a more in-depth level, and the environment's a bit more like interactive.
So I guess coming from someone who hadn't played it before, you picked it up for the first time, yes or no? What's the go?
Must have, definitely check it out. It's super affordable on the Nintendo eShop as well as PC on Steam.
That's because of the Switch.
Enjoy.